Jess, today is going to be an exposure day. Here's why. We get to talk today about this simple topic. Is your message yours? And this is going to land with a lot of listeners because here's what we have seen. We've watched coaches be in certain silo-based coaching spaces, join coaching communities, or let me rephrase that, not coaching communities, coaching companies, and then
Mhm.
come into our coaching community with a message that was something that they either borrowed from somebody, learned from something, and it had no attachment to them from their own unique experience.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, you said today's gonna be an exposure day, and I was like, "That sounds awkward," but I know that's not how you meant it.
No, we're all staying fully clothed. Yeah, we're not getting exposed that way,
Yes,
if that's what
yes,
you meant.
but
Yeah, no.
but I think it's a relevant conversation for
Yeah.
sure to have around where are you getting your messaging and your language from?
Mhm.
And so I think that most often people do enter into a industry, a space, and they take what they've learned from where they just came from.
Right.
And so it's natural and it's not wrong, but I also think that we need to have the conversation about how do you check whether it's yours or not.
Well,
So,
and you're gonna be I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this topic because I mean you're an educator, right? You're an educator in your former life and you learned and then you taught.
mhm,
And that's what we in our world of leading, of influencing, of coaching do. I can go back to my tennis days being taught tennis. When I was taught tennis, I learned tennis. When I coached people tennis, I brought forth what I learned and did the same thing, right? And what's fascinating is let's just take that simple vertical there. The way I learned to hit a forehand from my coach is different than the way that my kids learn to hit a forehand. And
mhm,
so if I was to go out and teach a forehand and I was to go out and teach a forehand next to my son teaching a lesson, we would teach two different things, right? But the crazy part about what we're talking about today is that is the world of learning and then sharing. And then where are you putting your authentic message to it? That's the
mhm.
key here is where is your authentic messaging with what you've learned and now you're going back and out to teach other people how to do.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the crux of what I was thinking about in this concept is where are you making it your own or where are you owning it versus
Right.
just regurgitating it?
Right.
And so it's not that you can't take what you were taught and use it and learn from it, but it's how do you shape it and actually own it?
Yeah,
That to
for sure.
me is the place that we see the people struggle with the most.
Mhm.
And it's natural, I think, because you're borrowing confidence from somebody else's language or somebody else's authority,
Right.
and somewhere along the way you forget to go back and convert the language from what you borrowed to your own
That's right.
because
Right.
it's just easy to keep using what you already, found success with.
So I'll give you again, I'm gonna stay before we get into our coaching space, I'm gonna stay in the tennis space because
Okay.
this was a space that I absolutely loved putting my own stamp on things. So in the tennis world, when I got out of playing tennis and into teaching tennis, I had to bring forth fun and excitement on the court, right? Because again, I was teaching little kids at the time, working my way up to higher level players. And when you hit a ball, either forehand or backhand, you have to realize that your whole body has to be included in the swing. Okay.
Mhm.
And so I would watch players, I would feed balls, and they would just use their arm, right? They would just use their arm, either a forehand or backhand. And I would get to the point where I would say, "You realize you're going into the military." And they were like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You're actually going to go into the army." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Because you're using all arm. This not an army swing. It has to be a full body swing." And they were like, "Oh, the armed forces approach." I was like, "That's right. That's an armed forces approach." And it's silly, but I kid you not that it landed so well that people remembered. And I would say to them, you're joining the army. And they're like, oh, that means I need to use my whole body. Okay, pause for a second. In the tennis world, people teach forehands. But how many people teach forehands that are armed forces forehand? Right. And that's what we're talking about here in that space of What are you making uniquely and authentically yours? Because on the flip side of that, Jess, I have gone into a space where I would jump on YouTube or I would buy a course or I would do something like that and try to use almost the exact same language as what that coach did with me. And it wasn't authentically mine. And
Mm,
those receiving it from me could feel that it wasn't authentically mine.
that's so huge. And I think, like I said, naturally we borrow what we've just absorbed, learned
Right.
from, taken. But the key here, and that's where you were pointing out my educator background, is to frame it and connect with it
Right.
in something that you understand. So it's more than being able to read the textbook to somebody or the slides to somebody, but it's how do you actually understand and interact with the language or the information in such a way that it truly is yours. And I I think that the industry that you and I met in is a great example of one of many that people love to rip off and duplicate what they see working, and they don't spend the time auditing whether or not it aligns with who they are.
Right.
Because they're like, "Oh, I love this playbook. I'm just gonna go run the play and, we'll see what happens. But if I find success with it, I'll just run the play over and over and over again to the point that you'll lose yourself."
Hmm.
And I think I was an effective teacher in the traditional classroom, and I think I'm still an effective trainer and speaker now and coach because of the fact that I own everything that I say. I don't just regurgitate information. I mean,
Right.
I built an entire podcast for myself outside of this one where I take the big ideas that other people say and then I talk about how I interpret them.
Right. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because of the fact that when you can sit here and claim ownership of the language, the message, the idea, it makes people want to work with you. It
Yeah.
makes people understand who you are and what you're doing and how you can serve them at a much different and deeper level
Mm.
than just borrowing the language of somebody else.
Right. And I think again, what we want you to hear today is this. You will go out and learn. And if it aligns with who you are and what let's call it if it's on brand, let's say, because the world we live in right now, Jess, is no longer the information age. It's truly the implementation age. So what are people doing? They're going out and learning and then implementing. And some people are implementing and then going to teach or coach that implementation. And so what you have to know is, and we use the word authority all the time, right? And we also say that when you are the authority in something, which means you're authoring something, that trust mechanism there is, wow, Adam's saying it or Jess is saying it. Therefore, they probably are the trusted source in that space. But what we have to wake up to is if you're just ripping someone else's stuff off, and it's not, what's the name of this podcast? Is your message actually yours? That's where you have to pay attention, right? That's where you have to pay attention. And you hear us on this podcast all the time. We will quote people, we will use models from other people, and we will give them the credit. But we can also take those and see how it works into our world and tweak it a little bit and then give it our stamp of brand, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
And that's what we need you all to hear is your message actually yours?
Yeah. Well, I think that our most successful coaches in our world, speakers, authors, whatever, they're all people who went from borrowing authority, borrowing language, borrowing messaging, borrowing an identity from somewhere else, doing the work, and then defining their own.
Yes,
The ones that are struggling are the ones who haven't done the work and haven't found their own.
that's right.
And so that's kind of the gist of what we're getting at here is it's not that it's wrong to borrow it, it's wrong to try to own what was borrowed.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And I love watching this, right? Because we a whole nother podcast, but we have our three P's, right? Proximity, process, and peers. And the process is what we want to help coaches build along that path that is theirs, right? That is theirs. And sure, they may have learned it from somewhere else. And though, but they have gone out and they've now focused on how to do it. Again, our listeners, if you've listened to us from show one, you know that I went out in 2018 and bought Dan Henry's course in the coaching space. And Dan Henry had a process of step 1 through 177. I think there was 177 videos, Jess. I don't remember how many, but there
I
was a
think I
lot.
remember.
and and that was teaching the framework on how to do something. And what I realized is the framework was so cool that I wanted to build my own framework.
Mhm.
I didn't use Dan's framework as my own. I went out, used his framework to have success, and then in that created my own process, which we
Mhm.
talk about, which we coach coaches to. And ultimately that turned into our amazing blueprint, right?
Mhm.
And that's what we're talking about right here is where are you where are you paying attention to your own process? How and where are you building out your process of 1 through 5 or A through Z so that you can then step into your own messaging and your own language with your own process?
Right. So we're not telling you, like I said earlier, that you're doing anything wrong if you're using somebody else's framework. If you've joined I Love Coaching in any of our events or our membership, you're allowed to use our process. But the key here is what is the next tactical right move for you after you find success with somebody else's?
Mhm.
Is sitting down and saying, okay, what belongs, what doesn't?
Yeah.
What fits and what doesn't? What
Mhm.
feels natural and authentic and what doesn't?
Yeah.
And that is the thing that nobody ever wants to do in the entrepreneurial space, because when you tell somebody to slow down to speed up, they balk at the language of slow down. They don't want to slow down.
Right.
But by taking the pause or the moment to sit there and say, okay, what naturally fits and what doesn't, allows you to accelerate your success because you can turn around. And then when you are in an elevator and you have the opportunity to do a pitch, when you're
Mm.
at a dinner party or a networking event or whatever, and you've internalized your own natural language and your own message and you have confidence in it because you have gotten the results, it makes every other piece of that messaging easier. And then nobody is sitting there looking at your website or your newsletters or your social media saying, oh, I can totally tell that was written generically by ChatGPT,
Mhm.
because your messaging is clearly yours and
Yes.
it's not some slop, which I think was the word of the year last year. Um,
Slop
yeah,
was? Are you serious?
yeah, AI slop. And
Wow. Oh,
slop
that
is
makes
the word
sense.
of the year. Yeah, yeah. But that's the key thing here is when the messaging is yours, nobody is sitting there and calling it slop
Right, right.
because we
Here's the other
know it fits.
here's the other neat thing I want you all to hear is if you borrow someone else's message, you're also borrowing someone else's belief, right? And
Mm,
if you're borrowing someone else's belief or premise, as I think our good friend Graham Cochran loves to use, is that is your worldly, that is your universal belief of that space. So if you're going to borrow someone else's message, I would say that you're probably also borrowing inauthentically their belief process. And that's going to show up, right? That's really going to show up, Jess, that, and you may not even believe in that. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm regurgitating what I just heard.
mhm.
But do I even believe what I'm saying right now? Because I saw someone else have success with this language and this messaging. So I'm going to go do it myself. But oh my gosh, do I even believe what I'm saying here? And that's really important, right? And why do I share that? Because as we look at all the coaches in our community, Jess, there are coaches in there that are in the same vertical, right? They're in the
Mhm.
same coaching pathway. And if they all go out and use, and this is cool, and go out and use the same messaging, okay, that may be true, right? If we have real estate coaches, I'll teach you how to get to $1 million of gross income. Fantastic. Coach one, coach two, coach three, coach four, coach five. And maybe the messaging is the same. The belief is different though, right? And
Oh,
that's what
for
we have
sure.
to pay attention to in the messaging space is where does your belief show up in this?
I think that's a very valid point that we don't hear enough people in this industry talking about.
No. Mm-mm.
I mean, and again, that's why I was going back to AI slop. I heard that probably a half dozen times last week, which is why it's stuck in my head. But
It's true,
it's
though.
true.
It's
Like,
true.
you said we're not in an information age, we're in an implementation age. I think that we're also headed into this authenticity era of
Mhm.
people like figuring out who they are because of all the AI slop. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I don't want to show up this way. I don't want it to talk like this. I don't want it to tell people I am a certain thing. And so people are having to actually sit with who they want to show up as and
Mhm.
articulate their identity at a level that we have never seen before.
Right.
And so this is a challenge to you is how are you putting out this messaging around who you are and who you want to be seen as?
Right.
Because
Exactly.
it's not just your actions, it's also your language.
Well, and just as an FYI here, people, if you have a dash in your messaging, it's probably a high percentage chance that we know you use GPT, right? That little dash that GPT uses in all of its language and sentence structuring, it's probably GPT, Jess.
Which is breaking the hearts of every English teacher and writer out there that understood the value of an M dash. I just want to
Mhm.
be clear. They are appropriate, they're just not appropriate in every other sentence.
Every other sentence, for goodness sakes, people. But let's transition this a little bit. Is your message actually yours? I'm so glad you brought up AI, Jess. Because here's the thing that you have to pay attention to when it comes to building that identity. And let's take social media as an example. AI is a great copywriter, right? AI is really good. And we use AI all the time. That's a whole nother podcast, but I'm massively in love with Manus right now. And what's neat about AI is when AI learns you, when AI learns your process, as you use it either as a co-pilot or as a team member, it's really good. Though if you're just in the GPT world, and by the way, GPT is such a flip phone, and it's a flip phone that's on Cricket, for God's sakes. Get off of GPT, Jess. We've talked about this for many times.
Well,
Yeah.
especially the people who aren't paying for it
Yes.
to like
Oh,
and like curating it.
we're
That's the
calling
part
you
that
out right now, right? We're calling those people out right now. You will use this in a way that actually turns off people, right? And,
Mhm,
and you will start to lose relationships with people because they know your messaging isn't yours, right? Whether that's
mhm.
in an email form, whether that's in a posting form with the content, whether that is in podcast form, whatever it is, people will start to learn that that messaging is fake. That messaging is inauthentic. And so just be careful there.
Yeah, I mean, you're burning any trust bridge that you were starting
Yes.
to build when
Mm,
you start showing up inauthentically.
mhm.
So your language, your messaging, the way that you show up matters because it literally will either make or break the trust in you.
Yes.
And so that's why we started with language. That's why we started with messaging, which is why we spent the last series only on language and messaging with Maslow because we know that this literally, especially in these like consulting and service-based industries, matters more than anything else.
It truly does. So I think we beat a dead horse here, Jess.
Yeah.
You've got to just step into this space. Now, let's talk about what is your messaging, right? What is that messaging? The messaging is the language you're going to use that aligns with your avatar that is based on the solving of a problem that you have to build trust in people. Period. There's your messaging, right? That is what your messaging is. Everybody has their own unique belief in a specific space. Everybody has their own unique language. You can use AI for your language, but it better be your language, right? It
Mhm.
better be your language. So, for example, if you were to take this and you took the transcripts and you threw it into an AI agent of some sort, and you said, I want to be better at my messaging, take what Adam and Jess just said as my education piece and help me build my messaging even better. Great. You should do that, but it needs to be your messaging.
Right.
Yeah.
Always,
Okay. Always.
always leverage the tools to be more human.
Mm, gosh, that is so good. Where it's going the opposite way. Most people are saying, oh, it's so robotic, but no, that was good, Jess. Become an even more invaluable human.
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
that's really the bottom line is all of the things from the industrial age onward were meant to add efficiencies, and that's AI is just another layer of this adding efficiencies, but that's not meant to make you less human. It's meant to give you the space to be more so. And that's
Yes,
where when people are not using it correctly, you notice it so quickly because they're not staying human or being intentional around that.
that's right.
And so beginning with what comes out of your mouth or out of your fingertips, that is place number 1 that we just want you to be intentional.
Yep, totally. Just be intentional. Go out, identify your own messaging. If you don't know how to identify your own messaging, just what should they do? We can actually have a call to action here.
We would love for you to join us at our next event, which you can find all that information at ilovecoachingco.com.
Mhm.
And join us. We've got challenges, we've got intensives. We are here to help serve in
Yes,
whatever fits the thing that you're building right now.
that's right.
So go ahead, reach out, let us know, and we will see you on the next episode where we'll continue this conversation about auditing whether or not your offer is actually yours as well. So, moving from that borrowed or conditioned identity into something that is owned and operated by you.
Love that. So, Jess just said this is going to be a multi episode approach. And Jess, I think we're probably going to have like 4 or 5 of them, aren't we?
Yeah. I think
Ooh,
I think
it's gonna be good.
we've gotten in this habit of creating like arcs or series, and I think it's been a really great thing for our listeners.
Mhm.
If you have an opinion on this and you want to
Yes.
share it, let us know. But this is kind of the thing that we're building because Adam and I could spend all day talking about it. So instead we're trying to do it in 20-minute increments.
Yes, we are. Okay. So that's all we have for you. We'll see you next time and build your own message. See you. Bye.
Bye.